Hi, and welcome to Screens in Focus, the podcast where we talk about TV and movies. I'm Diana, and today we are talking about Cobra Kai, Season 6, Part 1. Grog is back to join me. Hi, Grog. How's it going?
I am doing well. I'm so glad to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. We covered Season 5, and we had thoughts and anticipation, so I can't wait to get your take on Season 6. We haven't talked about it at all, so I don't know how you're feeling. So I always start off with the question of the day, but we're going to do a little different this time. This is the question of the day. Which Cobra Kai character do you think would make the best sensei and why? Okay, so that's the question. And we've decided we're going to mull that over. Right, Grog?
Yes, I wanted to build a sense of suspense into the episode and not bias the observer's opinion in any way, shape, or form until, give them some time to take it all in.
After we talk about it, I might change my thought too, right? Because I have a couple thoughts in my head, but it could change and we'll find out.
All right, we'll see.
Okay, overall thoughts on season 6, part 1. We see Miyagi-Do kind of thriving at this point, appears to be. Old rivals are getting along. They're prepping for the Sekai Taikai. There's just a lot of new beginnings happening here. And we see Kreese, where Kreese is at, because Kreese was in jail last season. Now he's out and we learn more about his background. So, what were your initial thoughts on this part 1?
Well, okay, so when I started watching it, I got that sense of nostalgia about, the show. And it's been a while since the last episode. It's been like, what's 2 years, I think, or it's
It
been a while.
feels like a long time. Yeah, actually, I think that we put out our podcast in 2022, October, I think, or
Yes,
in the fall.
I believe so. So I had read about the episode, and one of the controversies were like all these actors are like, like in their 20s now.
I
Like,
know.
do they really come off as like high schoolers, And yeah, kind of, I guess. They're good actors,
Yeah.
and there's been some weight gain.
Yeah.
And, I just like Miguel. I'm like, he's one of my favorite characters, but it's like he looks kind of like, I don't know. How old is that guy? Like 27 or something like
No,
that?
actually, he's the youngest out of all of them, which I
Oh,
was
really?
shocked. Yeah, I think he's 23, 24, around that age. Think the oldest is Sam, around 27, 28.
Uh huh.
And I think the rest of them are kind of in the middle in there
Yeah.
somewhere.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I
yeah,
read that they were going to be in that range. So it was kind of like, okay, I have to overcome that, kind of, expectation about trying to believe the story.
right. Yeah.
And then I actually, I hate to disappoint your viewers, but I fell asleep during the first episode, and
Oh my
I
gosh.
watched most of it, and I
Yeah.
struggled to stay awake, and then I put it off, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to watch this. I was going to throw in the towel on it, and then you asked me if I'd do the podcast. I was like, okay, so that's how I ended up watching the whole season. Is I did it for you, Diana.
Ah, I love it. Thank you. I think though, okay, so my initial thoughts are it really feels like a buildup. It felt, to be honest, I can see if people were a little hesitant on this season because it can be corny at times, right? But that's the way it is. And I'm a loyal person, so I just keep, having hope for what things can be. It's funny cuz last season you had talked about the realism that you saw in this series. And even though it can be corny and we see silly things, there is that realism in there still. So I really think it's setting it up. I think there's a lot that's going to happen. I really enjoy the fights in this when they have them, and they didn't have tons of them, but I'm already giving away something I was going to say later, but I hear there's a lot coming in part 2. I'll say that for now. I really enjoyed episode 1, and that's the one you fell asleep on. And I enjoyed episode 5, which we'll get to here. But I think the reason I enjoyed episode 1 is it just gave us a sense of where everybody's at. I liked the opening montage with REO speedwagging roll with the changes, because that's
Yeah.
exactly what they're doing here. I do miss the friction between Daniel and Johnny, because that's what kind of made the first 4 or 5 seasons, but they need to get over it, and it's about time they get over it, and I'm glad that they're over the initial dislike for each other. Now they just have different styles that they have to deal with. So I did enjoy episode 1. So did you go back and watch episode 1, or did you just
I
kind of go
did.
from there? Okay.
I like I said, I was falling asleep the first time, and then I watched it, and I had my MacBook Pro out taking notes, just trying to kind of feel it out in terms of the entertainment value of it. If we're gonna, that's what I value about your shows, Diana, is you give me a lot of information on should I watch something or not, and so you're a
Thank you.
good filter for me. So, that's kind of the way I looked at it. And so I'm helping other people filter it perhaps by
Yeah.
watching. So I'll do the best I can for not being, that type of entertainer, but it's fun to do.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate those words. I really do. And I appreciate you being here to discuss it and watching it for all of us. So, after rewatching the episode 1, did you have any takes on it? Where it was going, what you thought about it?
You covered it really well. What it was all about: good music. It's that kind of battle between the old school tradition versus the new school, and young people trying to figure out their way through life. The teenage angst, that's kind of not normally what I want to hear about. I mean, having already lived that myself and then having kids, it's like, okay, not what I'm drawn to. But, that's an ongoing element of the show, and the underlying, hostilities that they have and had and are trying to work out. That's a good life lesson, I guess, you think about it that way. And then Johnny is always, you know, fun to watch. He's got the best one-liners. So,
He
that's
still
that's
does.
really, yes, that's really why I that kept me attracted to the show, is Johnny.
I couldn't agree more. It's just every season it instills it more, and actually in this one, because like I said, it's a little bit different just because it's one part. We're not seeing the whole season, so we're just getting the beginnings of things here. And but I do want to say in episode 1 that we see how Chosen is. We see how Amanda's taking it in. We see how Daniel is saying, okay, this is my swan song. I'm saying goodbye to it, because she's kind of like, okay, I'm done with this part of our life. Let's move on. And Daniel says that. But as he says that, I'm thinking, is it really Daniel? Is it really? I don't know. I don't know that he could just really step away the way he thinks he can. And of course, we see Johnny trying to more or less expand, like that's his goal. And we also see all the kids getting ready to face a new chapter in their life, which is college or beyond, or whatever it is that they're going to do. And Kenny, I was really eager to see Kenny and Anthony. And it's interesting because now they kind of just tolerate each other and get along. And I actually want to talk more about Kenny in a few minutes here, but let's move on to more of the bulk of the season and the season's broader themes. So, is there anything that stood out to you?
Broader themes. Like I said, the tradition versus kind of the commercialism of life. Having studied martial arts, I kind of worry about people who watch Cobra Kai, like maybe some parents who are watching it, wondering if they want to put their kids into martial arts, and then thinking like, oh, what if we get a bad sensei like Kreese? It's like, oh, geez, I've never really met a bad sensei. I mean, you don't get there by being a dick, like Johnny. And
Yeah.
so I
Or Kreese or
or cre-
Silver.
yeah, or teaching violence. I think
Right.
and once you've been in martial arts for a few years, you develop more humility. And if you were like a person who wanted to get into martial arts because you wanted to go and get in fights and beat people up and stuff, doesn't take too long to realize that that's not a really good way of life,
Yeah.
and you get that humility. And so when I see, that's one of the kind of the unbelievable things about the whole story of Cobra Kai is that they're just so evil, and it's kind of
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's that struggle. Daniel's trying to be a good guy, but even Daniel kind of falls down a little bit,
Yeah.
morally speaking. And so, yeah, I mean, in that way, it's real, it's realistic, but it's interesting to think about that kind of dichotomy.
Yeah. Well, I also think there is a lot to be said about legacy in all of this because of course that is what Daniel's trying to do this whole time is a legacy of Mr. Miyagi and what he learns about him and how that impacts him because he's like, "Whoa, Mr. Miyagi wasn't always perfect. He had his issues too." And also with Johnny kind of facing what Cobra Kai means to him, like when he gets that text from Stingray, doesn't realize it's Stingray, he thinks it's Kreese, he goes to the woods and Stingray is like, "Okay, you were a great sensei and you taught me so much and you welcomed me and you should be doing this and we should bring it back." And I thought, "Oh, this is gonna change Johnny and who the direction he goes." But that actually, when he went back, I want to step back just a little bit because they're all trying to figure out a new dojo name and how they're going to move forward. And so we see Chosen, Daniel, and Johnny all have their own ideas on that. And then we see where each of them in a different scene make their decision. And then they come back and they kind of give in because that just shows the growth with both of them because normally they would have never given in. That would have sparked another fight between them. And even though they talk about the dojo, it's not the same. They I feel like they finally passed that hump that we were waiting for, but now it's just about their styles because really different. Their styles are really different on how they approach. Their personalities are different, their teaching approaches, their values, but they still, I think the heart of both of them is that they do want to impact their students and be a good sensei and fight for their students and have their students show their strengths of what those are. So I think there's a lot of legacy here with those characters and what we're seeing. I do want to bring up, I was listening to a podcast with Xolo, who's Miguel, and I believe it's Jacob who plays Hawk. They have a podcast together and
Oh,
they have Ralph Macchio on it. And so they were talking, it was on YouTube. So I saw it on YouTube. So I listened to it. And to listen to Sholo speak, he's so mature. Of course, he is 23, 24 years old, but still he's very mature in how he speaks. And it was funny because watching Ralph Macchio not in his Daniel gear, he actually looked younger as Ralph Macchio than he did as Daniel LaRusso. I don't know. I think it was because he was wearing a baseball hat and he was talking about how much he loved the younger generation and what they've brought to Cobra Kai. And of course, Sholo and Jacob were saying how much they were just talking about how much they appreciate each other for, all the right reasons, which was really great to hear. And it was funny because Ralph Macchio was talking about when they first approached him for the series, how he said he didn't want to do it because he's all Mr. Miyagi can't, Pat Morita can't be in it. I can't do this. And they kept coming to him about Cobra Kai. He's all Cobra Kai. He couldn't even bring himself to say Cobra Kai because that's how much it impacted him, the movies and what he felt about it. So, but then they said, well, you need to see this from another perspective. You need to see this from Johnny's perspective and what it meant to him. And all of a sudden, it just kind of clicked for him.
What
And
what's
so
what's Johnny's the actor's name?
William Zabka,
Oh, okay, that's right. Okay.
yeah. So that was, I guess, the turning point for him. And then they brought him, I guess, the scripts, the ideas. He thought, okay, I need to look at this from a different perspective. And also, I need to bring truth to every single scene I do. If I can't find the truth in it, then I can't do it. So it was great to get that insight from all of them and to hear all of them speak. So I just thought it was a good podcast to listen to. But I love hearing the importance of Pat Morita and Mr. Miyagi in both Ralph Macchio's personal life and also in Daniel, because I think it carries over, right? It carries over for him, and that's the truth that he carries when he's making this series with all of them. So that's tough for Daniel to deal with all that box. Did you have any thoughts on that, on the box that they opened and what all of it may mean?
Well, the mystery, that's kind of like lurking behind everything, and they kind of unravel it, and that makes you wonder, like, oh, did he really have a shady past? And I'm not buying that for a second. I think the next episode, if I choose to watch it, I guess that would be what I'd want to know, is what was Miyagi's deep dark secret.
Yeah,
And I'm just not buying it. We're going to find out he was somehow in a conflict and had to make some decisions, but ended up making the right decision.
I know.
So we'll
That's what I
see.
think too, but I don't know, you never know. I do like that Amanda tells him, Daniel, because he's like, "I can't believe you didn't tell me. I didn't really know who he was." And she says, "Wait, do we tell our kids everything that we've done? What about Cancun?" And he says, "Oh no, we don't." And of course, Chosen's all, "What happened? Was it Chosen or was yeah, it was Chosen. What happened in Cancun?"
Oh,
I'm not telling you. And that's another little piece, Amanda and Chosen, because she wants him gone. Like, how long is he staying here? I think he's overstayed his welcome. It's time for him to go. And he's all settling in. Like this is his new place. Also with Chosen, we see Kumiko, how he has reached out to her and she didn't reach out back to him. And I think that might play a part. I don't know what part that will play. Does that mean he just leaves and he's not going to be there for a while? I don't know if that was the reasoning for it, but it seems weird that she wouldn't answer. So I just wonder how it's all going to come together. I keep taking every little piece that I see and thinking somehow it's going to impact the story. He is gone because I think he went to Okinawa. Chosen did. Yeah, because he wasn't at the end with Daniel and Johnny. It was just those two, which is kind of surprising that he isn't there unless he
yeah.
shows up. So what about Johnny's growth in this? Do you have any thoughts on Johnny? Of course, just being funny as ever.
It's just the reason to watch it. I mean, going back to the actors that you saw on the podcast
Yeah,
talking, about how, I guess if you think about it, they're young actors, and hopefully they don't get typecast like Zapka did, because
right.
he had never got, got anything after this. He was so typecast. And so hopefully that's not a thing with those guys, because they all seem to be, pretty good actors, and you could probably see them developing into, action heroes or something someday. Uh,
Actually, Xolo is Blue Beetle, that movie. I don't know, it came out, I think it was last year. George Lopez is in it. I think it might be DC Comics, I
hmm,
believe. But that is out, and he is the action star in that. He is the Blue Beetle. And it is funny. You would probably like it. It's pretty funny. But yeah, out of all of them, he's the one that I've seen out there the most. I have seen a movie with Robbie. It was a young rom-com movie, but I think I've seen Xolo in most things that I've seen.
and what about
So,
Tori? Has she been in anything?
I not that maybe she has, but I haven't seen her. They're all
Yeah.
great actors, so you're right. Will they get typecast? Will they have something beyond this? I hope so. Hopefully, they have the right platform to keep it going. I
Hopefully,
could
they
see.
have a good financial planner to help them invest all the money they're making. So, if their careers fall apart, they, you know, don't have it all swept out from underneath them.
Yeah. Okay, so you were talking about the actors. Is there anything else you wanted to say about that?
The thing about this show that, like, I just got to keep coming back to Johnny. When I'm watching a show, especially something where like a comedy, it's supposed to be funny. How many times have you watched a show and realized, like, I didn't laugh at one thing throughout the whole show? Like,
Mm.
what are they? Who are the writers? That they can't even produce a laugh. And with Johnny, it's always like a belly laugh for me, like a really deep, like, he's got so many great scenes, like when he goes to the open house with Chosen,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, he's trying to show how great a renter he's going to be. And it's like, his girlfriend's mom only smokes a little bit of dope, and then there was the test drive when he became a
Yes.
salesman for Daniel's dealership. And he's telling the guy, "Don't be a pussy," And then he has the sleepover with the girls,
Yeah.
and the fight scene with, I forget who the character was, where they're
Barnes. Yeah.
arms. Yeah, tells him, like, "Oh, I don't know what it's like to have to, bow down to another alpha male," that type of thing. And then they're fighting by a table saw. It's kind of like gratuitous, kind of
Yeah.
stupid fighting. But then here's this drinking his beer while he's training his students. And then he's shooting the beer bottles at him with a pitching machine,
Yes,
so
yes.
it's like all the he all that slapstick stuff that he does, but and then just his personality, that he just totally misreads everything. He's the lovable loser. He's his own worst enemy, and you love him, but you just hate him too. So he steals the show.
Yeah, I don't know about hating him, but I do think, like, he could be I think it's hilarious. Everything that you just mentioned is so funny and reminds me of all the scenes as you were talking about them. I can see how it could get if you thought about it under Daniel's skin, like, oh, he's teaching the kids this. And Daniel's probably trying, biting his lip, like, oh my God, this is killing me, how he's teaching them, but I got to just go with it because he's my partner here. All those parts are hilarious, even under his breath, because Johnny will say things as he's walking away. They're like throwaway lines, but they are the best throwaway lines. And like you said, when he's all, my pregnant girlfriend, and just the way he says it, instead of saying it in the best light possible, he just says it so bluntly in the worst way that makes him look bad. Like you said, it makes him look bad, but it's just hilarious to all of us because we're like, oh my God, if somebody really said that as a renter, as a salesperson trying to sell you a car, just all these things, everybody would run the other way. But with Johnny, it's so funny. When he sells his first car, he tells him, give him the bonsai tree. And then when he thinks he's going to get a raise and just all these things. So Johnny is so damn hilarious. Just his approach to everything. It truly is this relationship between Daniel and Johnny and how they react and how they are. I want to move into the characters and the student dynamics because a lot was happening there between all of the younger people in this. So, what if anything stood out to you about any of the relationships that we saw?
Well, was it episode 1 where they had the fight at the batting cages,
Yeah, I don't know if it was 1 or
with,
2. Could have been 1 or 2, I'm not sure, but yes.
well, okay, so then you have Tori and Samantha, who are still have this somewhat of hostility, but then they mend it, and
Yeah,
then it falls apart again, of course. And then you've got Robbie and Miguel, that they seem to be buddy buddy, but then they're
yeah,
conflicted at the end. And then you got, Hawk and Demetri. Oh, we need to go to MIT. Oh, you're not going to MIT. Oh, we're supposed to be, going together, all that stuff. So, yeah, those kind of the character development just is interesting to kind of see it develop along the way. And then when you get to the end and you see where it all leads, it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, now we got to have another episode or another season, to tie it all off again. So I wasn't expecting that, I really thought this was going to be the last season.
Well, this is the last season. It's just 3 parts to the last season.
So there's the next 5 episodes that's coming out in November, right?
Right, right.
And then it's done.
No, then it has 5 more.
It's got 5 more after that. Oh my
Yes.
goodness.
So we have 10 more episodes to go. We have 10 more episodes.
All
Yes.
right. Okay. Wow.
So
That's
this is the final season, season 6, but it is broken out into 5, 5, and 5. So that's how we're seeing it. So this was not a full season. We've seen one part 1
right.
of
Okay.
3.
See, I didn't know that. I thought it was all going to be tied up like at the end of this, series of episode 5. So,
That's why it left us hanging. That's why it's hanging. That's why I'm saying this is a setup to the next 2 parts. That's why part 2 is going to be pivotal again, which we'll talk about just in just a little bit. I do want to talk about, you were talking about the batting cage, and I did want to talk just a little bit about Robbie and Kenny, because he's trying so hard to get to him because he feels bad of how he left it. And so we see Kenny and how he doesn't want anything to do with Robbie, but Robbie keeps trying to get through to him. And then we see his brother Sean, who was in juvie, with Robbie there protecting him. And I actually liked where they took that, because Sean, I believe Sean is Kenny's brother. Sean says, "Oh, I can handle this. This is family," while they're all trying to help Robbie get through to him. And then later on, you see Sean talk to his brother. And I really liked that scene. I really liked that they showed his brother, because it would have been so typical if Sean came out as the bully and said, "Hey, Kenny, let's go do this." I don't know, whatever he could have said. But the fact that he said, "What kind of man do you want to be? What do you want dad to, you know, see you as?" Or I'm not exactly sure the words that he said, but I really liked seeing that of Sean and Kenny. And of course, then Kenny goes and joins Miyagi Do, but we do still see that friction between him and Anthony, and what he thinks Anthony does to him. But also with Hawk and Demetri, I thought that was interesting, because they've yes, they were at odds at one point in karate, but it's interesting to see this happens in real life. People grow in different directions, especially out of high school and even in college. People go different ways, and that's what's happening with those two. They're like, "Oh, we've had this dream since we were kids, and now you're changing it," which we'll get to that too. A lot of happens in episode 5, but I appreciated seeing that, because that really does happen, and to see Hawk contemplating what he's going to do along with all of them and what they're trying to do. So let's get to the Sekai Taikai tournament training and Kreese's return. We saw 2 different things happening with the different students. We see the students training to compete for Sekai Taikai, the 6 spots, okay?
right. Okay.
We also see where Barnes comes in and is doing his training, because Johnny and Daniel have a different approach and they want to bring in somebody who's more objective. And so they bring in Barnes. He's training him. So he has his way of training them.
Yeah.
And the students respond to him in different ways. And also at the same time, we see Kreese in Korea with Kim, and they're training these Kwan and other students. So did you have thoughts on both of those or either of those? Like, what stood out to you? Yeah,
Okay.
what stood
Yeah.
out to you?
So Barnes is more of, they bring him in more like to be the mediator, because, they just can't let Johnny and Daniel choose their own, favorites, although Johnny does lobby very heavily for Devon.
Yeah.
And then, then the whole Cobra Kai militant dojo that they're the evil dojo, that Kreese is teaching and promoting, and I forget who the badass is, but he's like
Quan
the
is
yeah
the one guy,
yeah
yeah.
he's gonna be the evil character, that who's gonna have to take him down. It's gonna be Robbie or Miguel. It's gonna
Yeah.
be those guys, you know, pairing off against him somehow. But yeah, I mean, so you see when I watched the Miyagi Do training, and good thing it wasn't Miyagi Fang, I guess,
I know.
But yeah, I see him, that's kind of like watching him train. It's hard for me to kind of believe it, having studied martial arts and stuff and see how they're training. It's not really that believable. And like even the fight scenes or the tournament scenes where they're fighting each other, like I don't think that's the way it really happens. At least when I did martial arts, you always had like pads on, at least hands and foot pads. And so you see these guys sparring with their bare knuckles and bare feet, and that's going to cause a lot of damage, if you train like that. So that's kind of like not that realistic to me to watch them do that. So it's just me trying to just overcome all that, as a viewer. It's like that. I think that's maybe one of the reasons why I'm not such a big fan of the series anymore, because it's kind of just its novelty is kind of worn off on me a little bit. But maybe I gotta stick it out, So we'll see what happens.
You have to see the you have to see what happens. You gotta see what
I really
happens.
gotta know. Well, maybe I can just watch your show and then I'll figure it out someday. 5 years from now, you'll.
Well, I hear what you're saying about, it not being so realistic, but of course, if they all had pads on, then it wouldn't be as exciting when they hit each other or knock each other out, right? So, I don't
Yes.
know.
Yeah.
But I think what I did wanna say is we see Devon trying so hard to show her best and such, and of course, we see Johnny's trying to help her because that's his student. So, I thought that was sort of an interesting dynamic to see, and it's funny because he has his son and his first, Miguel and Robbie, I guess he's like, "Okay, they're good." They've each had their time, and maybe it's Devon that he's trying to bring up here. But, I also wanted to talk about Crease because sometimes those scenes weren't as interesting to me, but I still thought that they were important because if we don't know what Crease is doing, then I guess it has no impact on the end. I think it was interesting to see, though, when Crease is bitten by the cobra, uh,
Yep.
and he has those hallucinations and he realizes that Johnny is his weakness and that if he lets go of that, then he can, because I think Master Kim tells him what's in the way. You got to push something about what stands in the way. That's what it is. He says, what stands in the way. But I don't know. I don't know because John or Kreese was still talking about Johnny, his best students to everybody. He was telling Master Kim, hey, 5 people try to come up against 5 of your people try to come up against my champion, referring to Johnny, and he was able to fight 5 of your guys. So what does that say about my teaching, my legacy? Again, back with the legacy. I'm curious where this is going to go with Kreese because now he's fixated on Tori being his champion. So we see Kreese in Korea, we see what he's been doing, and we see now that his goal is to get Tori on his team. Meanwhile, over at Miyagi Do, they narrow it down to the top 4 at this point, and they still got to pick 2 more out of the last 4. So, I feel like that segues into where episode 5 starts. Okay. So we see where it's narrowed down. We also see where they fight for the team captains. We see Johnny and Daniel's way of teaching still button heads, even more so. We see Kreese pay a visit to the US. And we also see Tori's mom die, which has a big impact on her and her leaving Miyagi-Do. So in episode 5, out of all of that, did any of it stand out to you?
Well, so you're wondering who the top 6 fighters are going to be, and you know who the top 4 are going to be. Then you see the competition, and then Devon puts the laxative in Kenny's water. And I think it was, yeah, Johnny was like, said, I guess someone got their brown belt, you know. But another funny thing, but not really funny. Poor Kenny, you know, they're
Right,
trying to turn him
right,
into a good guy. And then, you know, he loses the spot that he probably should have had because he is one of the best fighters. And then Devin, you know, obviously is corrupted, so, you know, that doesn't make you want to root wholeheartedly for Miyagi Do, knowing that they have some elements on their team that are not up to the standard. You know, their moral standards are not
right.
so high. So that's interesting. And then you see the fight with Miguel and Robbie, or the competition, and Miguel is like, oh, I gotta win this, you know, so I can go to Stanford. And so obviously being a cow guy, first of all, I think that's one of the reasons why I'm not rooting for him. But yeah, and then you see Robbie win,
You love
which
Miguel. You said that's one of your favorite characters.
is, but I mean, still, dude's making a bad mistake. I mean, he's going to Stanford, he's spending way more money to go to Stanford for a far inferior education than what he could get if he just went to UC Berkeley or something like that. So anyway, that's another internal conflict I have with the show. But yeah,
That's
I
okay.
mean, so, yeah, and then you see them all show up at the Sekai Takai, and then there comes Tori, like ooh, and then I wonder, like, where's Kenny? Like Kenny should have been there, and now is he going to be, you know, recruited to the dark side again? So, you know, how's that all going to shake out, and what's going to happen to Devin? You know, she obviously doesn't deserve to be there, maybe because of the way she got there. And so I guess we're going to have to see how that all resolves itself.
Well, and that's it, right? How everybody gets there, how everybody reacts, what they do. So I feel like winning this is what it's kind of like dangling, that carrot in front of these guys. Like, who's going to catch it? Who's going to get it? Why? What does it mean to you? Because it means something to each of them for different reasons. Just like when Miguel tells Robbie, hey, I'm going to bring it when we fight because I want to get into Stanford. And Robbie's all, well, just because I'm not going to college doesn't mean that I don't need it, because Robbie feels like he needs it because he isn't one to be going to college. He needs it. Tori feels she needs it because of her at the moment, her mother's still living, and it's like, oh, she needs it to take care of her family. Sam wants it because she wants to prove herself, because she feels that the last fight that they had, it was tainted, which it was because Silver paid the ref. So it shows what it means to all these people. For Devin, it just means she wants to win at any cost, and what she does to Kenny, you can feel that she feels a little bit of remorse because she keeps wondering where he's at. But yeah, she did it wrong, and it shouldn't have been her. And what do you do? And it's interesting because even Johnny takes matters into his own hands when he goes and talks to Barnes, which changes Barnes. I mean, Barnes makes it fair by saying you four are going to be on, even playing ground and go do it. So I thought Barnes handled it correctly. He just didn't pick her or pick one of them. He let them, which I thought was good. But it was also interesting because Demetri, I felt like Hawk should have won that, but Demetri also stepped over because when he went to pick him up, he knocked him over and took the flag. So, I mean, yeah, Demetri got it, but at that point, Hawk wasn't didn't think he was competing with him. He thought, "Oh, I have this. Let me help you up because you're my buddy." So, it ended up with Demetri and Devon making the final. But then, of course, when Tori leaves, that brings Hawk in. But Daniel does say to Johnny, "Hey, you're leaving us weak here because Hawk should be going, and it's because you went and talked to Barnes that he changed the way he was doing this, and Hawk would have probably had a shoe in if it had not been for that." So it was just really interesting how all that played out and how who really deserves to be there. And so I don't know. I was just yeah. So it'll be interesting to see it play out. And also, like you said, Kenny, I thought before they got there, I thought Kenny was going to show up as another member of Cobra Kai,
Mhm.
possibly. When Tori walked up, I thought Kenny was going to be with her too, but he was not. So, but like I said, we've got 10 more episodes to go. So, and all these characters have to play a part. And I'm jumping ahead, but it makes me wonder what's going to play out in these 10 episodes because is it going to be all at the Sekai Takai? Because I'm assuming this competition is like the Olympics, right? You go and you're there for however long until it ends. So I'm just wondering, how this is all going to pan out and also with everybody else that's in the series.
Yeah, and they're
I
gonna
don't know.
have to unravel the mystery of Miyagi's participation in the Sekai Taikai.
Right.
Well,
Like, how is that going to come up also?
yeah, because he had the blood on his,
Headband.
headband, right? So
And yeah, I was gonna say, and Daniel realizes it because when he's putting the headband as a captain on Sam, he recognizes it, goes back and says, "Oh my gosh, Mr. Miyagi was in the Sekai Takai," which is going to play a part. And I wonder if Master Kim could have fought him back then. I don't know. It's
mhm,
who knows? I jumped ahead with all of that because I did want to talk about Tori's mom dying. So Tori's
mhm.
mom was fine, appeared to be doing well. Then Kreese comes and finds Tori and talks to her, and she wants nothing to do with him because she feels like he didn't give her the time of the day when she was going to visit him and kind of left her high and dry. So she doesn't want anything to do with him. But then she goes home, finds her mom has died, and of course she's blaming the doctors or yelling at them. But what I wanted to bring up was she was on the floor and she had a fist, and they specifically showed that Tori's mom's fist. So what does that mean? People have speculated, oh, Kreese killed her. I don't think Kreese killed her, but I'm thinking, did Kreese visit her and she might have had a heart attack or whatever happened because she was so mad that he was there for her daughter, possibly? I mean, that's my theory. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on Tori
Okay,
mom dying?
you just brought up my imagination here, but now I'm thinking like, okay, Tori's mom was fleeing an abusive relationship, right? And she was telling Tori to always be a fighter. And so now I'm wondering, is Kreese going to end up being her father?
Hmm.
Okay, just throw it out there.
Yeah,
But
I know,
that's what
right?
but that's a twist that just came to me. But anyway, no, I mean, part of that whole sequence with the mom was like, oh wow, it kind of, you needed it to understand Tori's motivations. It just peels
Yeah.
back a little bit more on her characters, why she is the way she is, you know. And she is kind of like her own worst enemy too. She wanted to
Yeah.
fight Samantha, and then when they found out her mom died, they're like, "Hey, let's stop. Let's not do this while you're, in such turmoil. Let's make it fair." And she was too kind of, upset to want to back down. So then next thing you know, she's back on the side of Kreese. So she's back in the evil empire. So
What did you
uh,
think about the stop of that fight? Because that has been on social media too. People have been saying, "Oh, Daniel shouldn't have stopped the fight, and Johnny was right, and this and that." What is your take on that?
Wow, that's on social media. That's what people are talking about. No.
When it
um,
comes to Cobra Kai, that I'm
yeah,
talking about just in
I
the
guess
world of
so.
Cobra Kai. Yes,
I
they
guess
have talked
so.
about that.
You know, if I was her actual instructor, I would have like canceled the whole tournament right then and there. Like, okay, no, we're not going to do this. So they shouldn't have let it happen.
I agree. I think that it should have been stopped at the moment. Like maybe, I don't know if they had to make a decision right that fast because they just made the decision and went on. It's like, because Daniel says, oh, we'll figure this out another way. And of course, Tori says, oh, yeah, because you're going to side with your daughter on this. Johnny is like livid because he's all, I was supposed to ref this and now you're taking over. And I think she needs to fight for her through her grief because I did for my mom. But I think, yes, they have to stop it for a couple of reasons. One, so Tori doesn't hurt herself. I mean, you can't fight when you're angry. And that's what Daniel has always been. And that's what Miyagi is. You don't fight when you're angry. Also, she could have hurt Sam because she was angry, taking it out on her and not fighting fairly. So, whether it's their daughter or not, which it is, I mean, I wouldn't want my child fighting somebody when somebody else's parent just died and they're angry as hell because you just don't know how far they're going to take it. So, she shouldn't be fighting when she's so upset like that. So, I thought it should have been stopped, but there are people out there that are thinking that should not have been. In fact, I think Hawk Jacob, the actor, was with Johnny on this, which was interesting. I believe I read that. So it was interesting, people having different takes on that fight. So the two things are that Kreese might have killed Tori's mom, and also should this fight have been stopped or not. Those are kind of the things that I've seen out there that have been getting a lot of attention. I'm sure there's more, but those are two of the things. So, all right, let's move into, I would love to know what your favorite part of the first 5 episodes was.
I have to come back to just Johnny, just not maybe one particular part, but just the ongoing stuff that he did. And maybe the test drive scene was kind of, that's funny. Seeing Johnny try to become a car salesman, you know, that was comical.
I want to add because you said Johnny, because he's been so funny and I find him so entertaining. But I did want to mention that part where this is not funny. It's actually a very serious part. But when that fight scene is called off and they start arguing, Johnny and Daniel, and Johnny calls Mr. Miyagi a liar and a thief,
Yeah.
and Daniel loses it and hits him. And then he's, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have done that. And then that's when Johnny says, look, I'm going to finish this because of the students, but when it's done, I'm done with you. So it again created that rift between them. But I'm like, why did you say that about Mr. Miyagi? I mean, you don't really know, but he had taken information that Amanda had given him and used it as ammunition because he was angry. So he used it, and then Daniel reacted. So I thought that was it raised feelings in me too when I watched that.
Yeah.
But
Another
go
conflict
ahead.
that's going to have to be resolved.
Yep. Yep. That's for sure. Yeah. Also, I want to say my favorite part, I really enjoyed the actual fight scenes, and I think between Robbie and Miguel, I found that very exciting, and I really did like it, and I think it's because I really like both of them. I want both of them to be team captain for different reasons. I want both of them to win for different reasons. So I thought it was a good matchup to see them, and I really liked it, and I liked seeing Robbie. I felt this is how I felt when I watched it. I felt as though they were both fighting. It seemed like Miguel had the upper hand, But when Robbie sees Tori come in, it like centers him, it like balances him. And I noticed that anytime any of the students get centered and they show that slow, like it's kind of like a Miyagi Do, Mr. Miyagi center balance. All of a sudden, they are honing back into themselves or core, and then they're able to fight the best that they can because Sam tells Miguel, "Come on, Miguel, just do the best you can." She's all, "I got to get into Stanford." She's all, "Just do the best that you can." And I think that was his downfall because he was fighting for something that he wanted rather than just doing the best that he could and trusting himself. So I feel like for Robbie, it worked because he saw Tori come in and he got centered, balanced, and that's why he won. But I loved seeing that fight scene between them. That was my favorite one. Now, the one between Barnes and Johnny, I thought it was a little hokey, like you said, with the blade right there. I'm like, come on. And they're all throwing and they're all looking at the blade as they get close, you know? But at the same time, it's kind of cool to watch these two guys fight, right? Because they are both kind of alpha guys trained in the same Cobra Kai style. So I thought it was good to see it. All right. Did you want to say anything else before we get to
I
our
was going to
question?
say it's about time to answer the question of the day.
Okay, let's answer it. All right. So, Grog, which character from Cobra Kai do you think would make the best sensei and why?
I think Robbie is the hands down the best candidate because okay, this season he didn't do anything like bad. He was always kind of like, trying to be the guy who mended the fences, even with Tori. Like he's like, "Hey, it's me and you together," and then she leaves him and then yeah, just athletically, I think he's really gifted. So like some of the kicks he does and stuff like that. And so yes, Robbie would be my number one selection.
Okay, so one, you gave me chills as you were talking about it because who did I pick? Robbie. I
Yes.
thought Robbie at the beginning too. I didn't change my mind, but you're right. After just saying that, that makes sense, right? And I thought it was because the reason I think he'd make a really good sensei is because of the way he has treated Kenny, and he really cares, and he really went back trying to get to him because he feels bad of where he left him. I appreciated that so much, but you were so right about like how he has been a good guy. Even when Miguel is like, "Oh, I'm going to college," and he looks at him, he's like, "Oh, what do you think about this?" I really like Miguel's approach to him too. I think Miguel could make probably a pretty good one too, but I just feel like Robbie is just showing, I don't know, this strength about him. And you're right about everything that you mentioned about him also. So I would pick Robbie. All right, friends out there, what Cobra Kai character do you think would make the best sensei? We would love to know what you pick. You can leave us a comment here on YouTube or wherever you're watching or wherever you're listening. You can leave us a comment on social media and you can even give us a call at 669-223-8542 because we would love to know what you think. All of that information is in our show notes. Okay, Grog, I want to say part two promises to be the most action packed yet. That is what I have read. So, with intense fights and plenty of turmoil. So, I would love to know what your thoughts are or what you're hoping to see in part two of season 6.
Yes. I suppose if I don't have anything better to do, I'll watch it.
I'm going to text you. I'm
No,
going to say it's on. Watch it.
I'm
I'm
gonna
going to
watch it
watch it. Go
just
ahead.
so we
What?
can have the discussion. I commit that to you. I will watch it and try to,
It's
you
5
know,
episodes, and they're only like 30 minutes, so it's only 2.5 hours, so it's not that long. There are
yes.
some episode seasons that are really long, this one is not. And I really, really think it's going to be good. I think there's gonna be a lot of fighting, although, yeah, they're probably not gonna have pads on, so be ready for that. but it'll be interesting to see. So I'm really looking forward to all the fights. I'm looking forward to Robbie versus Quan, how they do. It's hard because I think that Miyagi-Do, we have really good fighters, but they haven't been doing this their whole life, right? They just go to training and do it. And the Cobra Kai people, and we don't know what the other people that are in this competition are like, but with Cobra Kai, I mean, this is their training since they were young kids, and they are fighting for no mercy. So I think our guys are going to get the shit knocked out of them quite a bit. And it's going to have to center back on something Daniel finds of Miyagi, of Miyagi-Do, of Mr. Miyagi. That's what I think is going to happen and what I'm looking forward to. And we're going to learn about Mr. Miyagi and his past and what that boxing ring has to do with it, if any, and just that we talked about the headband. But I do think things are going to get worse before they get better.
Yes, but good will triumph over evil.
That's what we're used to. That better happen here. We'll see.
Unless
Yeah.
the refs get paid off again.
Yeah. Well, part 2 returns November 15th, and we'll be back, and hopefully Grog will be back if he's watched it to break it all down. All
Yes.
right. Well, thank you, Grog, for talking about Cobra Kai. I appreciate it so much. I really do. Thank you for watching it. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for just having all the thoughts that you do on this. But we're switching gears here. I would love to know if you've watched any TV or movie that you would like to recommend.
Yes, and before I do, I want to thank you for getting me motivated to watch it. Give me another reason to watch it because I did enjoy it. In the martial arts genre, I really enjoyed watching The Brother's Son on Netflix. Michelle Yao, is that how you say her
Mm,
name?
I believe
She's in,
so. Yo or Yao. Yeah, I'm not
you know,
sure.
and she is just incredible. And she won the Academy Award, right? And
Yeah.
so she's a great actress. But it's more of a modern day martial arts. Have you seen it?
I no. I
It
started episode 1, but I think I wasn't in the, mind frame to watch it at that moment, and I hadn't returned, but I know a couple of people that have watched it and liked it. So,
Yeah. Maybe we'll have to have an episode with me and you contrasting Cobra Kai and Brother Son. You
okay.
know, there are some similarities there, but the struggles, the characters, it's all very well done. So for people who like
All
martial art,
right. I'm gonna
I
have to go
recommend.
check it out.
Yeah, it's more believable. It's more realistic. When there's a fight scene, you see the character like the next day, and they're all bruised up and battered and stuff. And so it's more believable. But good martial arts sequences and clash of cultures, that whole thing. So
Yeah.
really good show.
Okay, gonna have to probably try and tune in. Sorry, but that sparked something, and we may have talked about this, and I've talked about it in the podcast previously. But did you ever watch the Billy Jack movies from the
Oh God,
70s?
I I know I probably saw one or two. I wasn't can't say I'm like you mentioning that to me is probably like the first time in 50
40.
years.
Okay, so anyway, it's like I love those movies. I love them. And the reason I love them is because Billy Jack is a badass and he fights with his takes his boots off, fights, and for the people. And I just remember being a young kid watching these and thinking, this guy is so cool. I don't remember how the fight I have to go back and watch it. You should watch a YouTube clip probably of it. I'm gonna find one and send it to you. But anyway, he's just I they're very 70s movies. I think he might have even maybe produced 1 or 2, I can't remember, because he really backed them. He really believed in them. And so and he ends up his wife is the main woman in them too. Anyway, sorry, went on a nostalgic ride there for a second, but I do love those movies with martial arts in them. So, my TV and movie recommendations: Umbrella Academy is back, season 4 on Netflix. I've only just started it. I love the whole series. It's funny. Have you ever seen this, Grog? Umbrella
No.
Academy? No. Okay. It's funny. Season 3 was one of my favorite seasons. Season 4, unfortunately, I'm piecing together because I was rewatching Cobra Kai. I am rewatching House of the Dragon season 2, which I will be podcasting on, so look for that. But between that, I'm watching Umbrella Academy, so I'm not getting to watch it all at once like I was hoping because it is all out. But it is a good series, and it is about some misfit group of people that are put together as siblings, and they all have different powers, and they travel travel through time a little bit. It's kind of like another dimension, but it's very entertaining and it makes me
Where,
laugh.
where is that streaming?
It's on Netflix.
Okay. Hmm. All right.
So it's yeah, I'm enjoying it. Okay, it's quite amusing. And I already mentioned House of the Dragon season 2, and I see you cheering. So did you finish
Can't
it?
go
Did you
wrong
watch it
with
all?
dragons. Oh yeah, dragons. It's like if you want to see dragons, this is your series right here. This more so than what was the Game of Thrones.
Game of
They have dragons.
Thrones. Oh, I don't
Yes.
know if you can see my poster or not, but my Game of Thrones poster. Yeah,
Yeah.
much more dragons, yes, but yeah, I love both series. So it's good. Although it left me hanging. I when it ended, my mouth open. I'm like, no, no, that can't be the ending. I'm not gonna say, I don't want to spoil anything, but what I want to say is I thought they were gonna show a little bit more, at least the start of what we're anticipating. That's what I will say. And they
Oh, okay.
didn't. So I was like, you're not going to show us the beginning of something? No, they didn't. And for movies, I want to bring up an old movie first, and that is A Few Good Men, because I did watch it because it was on, and I'm like, I love this movie. It is, I think, probably my favorite or one of my favorite Tom Cruise movies. It's so good. So go rewatch that somewhere. I did go
Yeah.
to the movie theaters, watched Deadpool and Wolverine. I absolutely loved it when I saw it. I laughed so hard. I thought it was hilarious. I saw it because of Wolverine. I love Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. And if you saw Logan, you thought that was the end of him, but here he is back. It is an R rated, it is one of the highest grossing movies this year. But I am going to say, after reflecting on it, as much as I loved it, I feel now that it was missing a little bit of heart for me. Like it was missing because I feel like Wolverine, the all the Wolverines have been a little bit more serious when all the X-Men and all that. They have like a seriousness to them. And I feel because this is Deadpool, it's much lighter, comedic. And so Wolverine is thrust into that world. And so I realized that I was missing a little bit of what I love about Wolverine. So, but it's still really good and it's action packed. So, I still would recommend it. I still loved it. And then last night, I just watched Instigators, which is on Apple TV with Matt Damon and Casey Affleck. So I was going into it, I knew it was a heist movie and I thought it was gonna be purely drama, but I found myself, like, kind of snickering, like, these undertones, and then I realized that it is advertised as being funny. I mean, it's not, like, hysterical funny, it's just their characters do things that are amusing, and it's not highly predictable, so I appreciated it. So I thought it was a good movie, so I would recommend that.
Okay.
All right. You have anything to say about any of the movies or TV shows we covered, or are you good?
I'm good. I have been watching a lot of the Olympics. That's been my show for the last couple weeks. So just loving that stuff. And then I'm looking forward to the new Aliens movie. That's
I
I
am too.
Yeah, I'm not a big X-Men, fan. I watched a few of them, and for various reasons, I don't go see their movies anymore. But I'll probably watch it when it comes to television. But Alien, I will definitely. It's like Dune. You want to see that on a big screen.
Yeah. Yeah. We're definitely going to go see that. Did you happen to see Horizon? Kevin Costner,
No, can't
Western.
doesn't
Yeah.
doesn't ring a bell.
All right. Well, that came out just a couple months ago. It was really good. The only issues that a lot of people had is it's 3 hours and it's only one part. There's four parts to this movie. And so when you go see it, I enjoyed it because I love epic movies. I love Kevin Costner and I like Westerns. I didn't realize I like Westerns, but I do. I think I appreciate them more now than I used to when I was younger because of everything everybody went through to get to where we are today. But there's a lot of storylines in Horizon, and that's why I like it. That was what some people I think didn't like because it was telling you different stories, but everybody's heading to the West. And so they're showing what's happening to three different groups of people. And Kevin Costner is one of the groups. So I really like it, but that is didn't get as many people in the seats at the theaters as they had hoped. So part two was supposed to come out mid-August, but they pulled it back. So they're pushing the first movie, and I think it's going to be on Max. And I think sooner than later. So if you get the chance and you like Westerns, then I would recommend that for you to watch that one.
Yeah, I'm glad you told me it's 3 hours because I would never go see a 3-hour movie in real life. That's
Yeah.
too
So you
much.
can take a break, right? You can watch half and do whatever and go watch the rest of it. But
Yes.
it was worth it to watch it on the big screen because of the impact of the cinematography because you get the West and all of that. So you'll miss that part, but I can understand why 3 hours could be too long for you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was geared up. I'm like, I'm ready. I'm watching it. Okay. So Grog, again, thank you for joining me. Thank you for your recommendations. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Keep up the great work, Diana. You are a great filter for this stuff.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. Do you want to share what you're up to and where people can reach you?
Yes, and my band is Exit 52, and that's 52.net. I'm on Facebook, Exit 52 on Facebook. And then I have my Grog's World YouTube channel, which is a lot of promoting my music. And then I'm a basketball player. I love playing basketball. And being 61 years old, I kind of like to have fun with it. So I bring the camera with me, or my phone, when I'm playing basketball. I'm actually really not even that good anymore. But when I do a good shot or make a good shot, I go into like a cartwheel. So I, kind of have that kind of, you know, entertainment factor to my basketball video. Some old guy, trying to, stay out there with the kids playing basketball. And then I'm starting to do some promotional videos for my one man show, Grog's World Rockstar DJ. And that's going to be cover tunes of me singing and playing guitar to a lot of classic rock guitar type stuff, iconic guitar solos, Jimi Hendrix, All Along the Watchtower, AC/DC. I do a monthly benefit show up here in Vancouver for Meals on Wheels, and it's a senior center. It's a Luke Key Senior Center, and once a month I go in there and I do the Grog's World thing, and it's been just a wonderful challenge. The lady that roped me into it, her name is Evelyn Hallett, and she was just featured on a national Meals on Wheels commercial. She's 98 years old, and she
Oh,
is
bless
just
her
a
heart. Yeah.
firecracker. Yes, and she's just so motivational. Such a wonderful and giving person. She's my model for like when I retire, like how I want to live my life is just helping other people and not
Yeah.
feeling sorry for myself. And then on the Meals on Wheels commercial, every time I see it, I stop now because I'm actually in the commercial. At the very end, you see me come in. There's a bunch of, kind of senior citizens dancing around in a circle, and I come up with my guitar, and they're all dancing around and stuff. So yeah, that's what I'm up to.
Awesome. All right. Well, I will have your link to where you can reach Grog and check out all that he's just talked about because he is amazingly talented. And I know this because I have listened to him and watched his videos. So please check that out. All right, friends out there, thank you for tuning in. We are grateful you joined us, and we hope something that we said today resonated with you, made you smile, gave you a chuckle, and gave you some inspiration. So don't forget to subscribe to Screens in Focus at screensinfocus.com and share this podcast with a friend. You can find our website in our show notes. I want to remind you to keep watching, keep exploring, and keep those screens in focus. And we will see you next time. Bye. All right.
That was fun.